Bonnie, you're not following today. Where did it say Julian? Where do you find the name? Go look at the other table.
This is my name.
No, that's it. Roll the board. Boy, where's yours? I see it.
These children are 3- and 4-year-olds. They are participating in a preschool experiment designed to assess the impact of 3 major methods of preschool education. These kids come from low-income homes. They attend school 2.5 hours a day in a class of 16 with 2 teachers and a paraprofessional. They, along with their mothers, receive a home teaching visit from one of the teachers every other week for about an hour and a half. I'm Dave Weichert, the director of the project from its inception in 1967 to its completion in 1970. Donna McClellan, the project supervisor, and I are going to talk about the project. The children were randomly assigned to one of the 3 programs selected for the study. We expected to find many differences between programs in the performance of the children because these curricula were so different in methods and aims. The language training curriculum emphasized learning of academic skills. It was developed by Carl Burreiter and Siegfried Engelmann at the University of Illinois. The unit-based curriculum emphasized the social-emotional development goals of the traditional nursery school. The teachers drew upon their intuitive understanding of the children to guide the program. The cognitive curriculum was developed over the last 5 years of the Ypsilanti Perry Preschool project. It applied principles of cognitive development derived from Piaget's work, as well as ideas from Sarah Smolansky, and most important, from teacher observations. The first program we're going to look at is the language training curriculum.
Betty, what's the sound?
What? Yeah. Good.
Oh, say it nice and big. Good. What's this sound? E. This sound?
Yeah.
Oh!
Bye.
What's this sound? What?
You're lucky sound.
Ooh, there's the magic sound, isn't it? Say it again. Ooh, what's this sound? Who knows? Who's going to get this sound? No? Sandy did it first. Good. What's this sound? Everybody say it together. This one? This one? What's this one?
I think that most people who visit react rather negatively to that sort of approach to young children. They're not ready to learn to read and to sit for long periods of time or even short periods of time and repeat sounds and this sort of thing. They feel that children need to play and to use their muscles and use outdoor equipment, and that they feel that this is not a useful thing for children and that they will become tense and they'll cry, that it's not a possible thing to do. And I think this shows that it is a possible thing to do, that the children are doing it. They're enjoying it, really. They're eager, and they can't wait to have their turn to say it, to try to outdo one another, to be the first one to say it.
And then I'll give you both a pat, okay? Everybody said it. All right, what's this one? Come on, let's see which one. Right, we'll fix it later. What's this one? A. This one? Okay, this is going to be a magic finger, and it's going to move all over the page, and you really have to watch it, because it's going to fool you, okay? That one. Oh, you're so smart. Didn't fool you that time. Okay, let's find another one. Oh, you want a real hard one this time?
Yeah.
too, that reading has been treated more and more by people as a non-intellectual task. It's a simple decoding operation, which probably could be taught earlier more easily than teaching it later.
Oh, what's the word? Oh, all right, so what's this word? Rope. Good, Sandy. Give me a handshake. Sandy said rope. Everybody say it fast. Rope. So what's this word? Rope. Say it fast. Broke. Have you ever been broke, Brenda? What's it mean to be broke? Your grandma? Broken leg, right? Just broke, right. We say we're broke. That means we don't have any money. Okay, so what's this word? Roker. Say it fast. Good. Okay, let's turn the page. Good reading. All right, ready? Everybody. Brenda. We gotta start over. Say it fast. Is the moon out today? No. When does the moon come out?
It's not an artificial or an abstract thing. It's a very personal, very close relationship that's established with the teacher and the child in the language training program, in spite of its structure and format. And this may be why, then, the language program is relatively successful. Indeed, there is strong suggestion that it's a very powerful method where youngsters are not injured by it, but indeed are helped considerably.
Leg! Good, Sandy. Leg. Right, we go swimming. Okay, let's read part of our story. We won't have time for all of it.
And give me a drink? All right, I'll have that drink. Yeah, I love it. I especially like it at the dinner hour. Everyone's giving me some tea. You would like a cup? Oh, you want a big cup? You hungry? Is the baby hungry too?
On the one hand, then, we have the language training program with its carefully pre-programmed sequence, which teachers give to children in an order which has been prescribed by the program developer. And the children respond and are rewarded as such, and the whole system of education is built up around that approach. At the unit program, which represents, in a sense, the other extreme of programming, the whole situation is turned around. In this case, the children are the ones who plan what they're going to do, and the teacher's job is to respond to this activity on the part of the youngsters, and they do this in a very informal and very often chaotic manner. In the unit program, the teachers tend to think of the child in terms of his social development. One of the important things to see, though, is that while they're playing together, there's not really a tremendous amount of interrelationship. Each one is doing his thing in his way, or they team up momentarily to work together at a task and then break apart to go on to something else.
And you want to give him all kinds of experiences so that he, can see his world in a broader way. the teachers in the unit program depend on the kids to give them their cues. They don't push them. If they're ready and show the teacher in some way that they're ready for a new experience, she tries to provide it. But I think generally they kind of let the child feel his way. For example, if a child were playing by himself at a table and was involved with something, the teacher probably would not intervene. She might not even give it a whole lot of thought of whether he's done the same thing for 5 days. She'd probably look at it from the point of view that child's a watcher and he's not ready to move into some kind of a social interaction with other children. If the unit teachers were going to plan, say, a unit around firemen, they would have tried to stimulate the children to think about firemen, to maybe begin to play firemen. They'd sing songs about firemen in their music time. They'd tell flannel board stories using the flannel board firemen. They would try to stimulate some kind of play around firemen in the block area using the fire trucks. And then their climax to the unit would probably be a trip to the fire station.
The cognitive curriculum starts with the idea that children learn concepts, learn to think and make sense of the world through action.
In the cognitive curriculum, the teachers would introduce the children to the real experience or the real object before they went on to more representational or symbolic activities in the classroom.
Very important in watching these children interact with these farm animals is the intensity with which they regard the animal, the way they touch the animal, stroke the fur, and get a real feeling of presence with the animal.
When the children got back in the classroom, they could represent this farm experience in many different ways. They could represent the sounds the animals make by singing Old MacDonald. They could represent by using their bodies to move like the animals they saw on the farm.
Many youngsters are uncertain as to where milk comes from in these days when people live in the cities. This chance to be in the country, to see a cow and to actually see how a cow is milked or to actually milk the cow himself is a very important experience. This experience through touch gives a depth of understanding of cows that could never be achieved in any other way. A child understands that a turkey can walk and fly and can run, but this sight of a turkey fluffing its feathers and extending its neck is a peculiar movement that can be understood only by direct observation.
When the teacher touched the children with a feather, they had to recall from their experience what animal this feather came from. The planning board is a device that helps the child to think about and to decide where he wants to work in the room and what materials he wants to use.
Making a plan is a difficult task for a young child. In order to help him, the teachers assist him in holding to his plan during his activity and then evaluate it with him when he's through. One of the most important parts of this curriculum is the focus on the individual child. And this is possible, or this can be done, only when the teacher really understands what the child is doing, where he's operating, how he thinks. For example, it's very important that a teacher be able to work equally with youngsters using the same materials, although they may be working at different levels. The teacher has to maintain throughout this a capacity to respond to the child as a person, as an individual.
Okay, 1 cup.
What about? About there?
Right there.
Huh?
See where Mom has her finger? Can you pour up to there?
In all 3 programs, we added the home teaching because we felt that unless the mother was included in some way, she could not provide the support to the child that would be necessary in the years we were working with him, and perhaps even more importantly, as he went through school. The home teaching has increasingly come to mean occasion to draw the teacher's attention to the individual child, so that as the teacher thinks about a child, she begins to see him as a total person at home as well as at school.
Did it take a lot more or just a little?
A little.
Little. Oh, that came out nicely.
We knew that home teaching could help the mother learn about what education is all about, how learning occurs, especially how terribly slow it is. And we also had hopes that the mother would learn how broad learning is. It's not just learning the alphabet or learning a series of number combinations, but is a wide range of things, much more than particular skills, but things like curiosity and learning to ask questions and learning to listen to what people are talking about and learning to bring things to other people's attention so that learning becomes a way of relating to people.
What did you put in first? And then what did you put in last? The very last thing was the water.
Almost inevitably, this becomes the most important thing the teacher does. All of our teachers have become very enthused about home teaching. And after getting over the initial fear of getting out of the classroom and out of the safety of the school and into the home and into the mother's domain, nearly all of our teachers have found this the most rewarding part of their work. We began this research project with the question, what is the best type of curriculum for preschool education? We used a wide range of testing instruments to determine how well the children were learning in each program. We found that the children did remarkably well on these tests and observations. But the surprise came when we found that, on the whole, there were no significant differences between curricula in the performance of the children. So we had to conclude that it was not the particular curriculum that produces effective preschool programming, but the way any curriculum is implemented. Now, what did these 3 programs have in common that made them all work so well? We identified 4 things as essential. First, planning and evaluation by the teachers themselves. Second, classroom supervision by an experienced teacher. Third, team teaching. And fourth, the expectations all the teachers had for the children.
You probably would not necessarily stressing attributes, but just the idea that the child can take a representation apart and put it back together. But I don't know what you feel is most important.
Well, we have been doing animals, and we have done, parts of people.
I saw supervision more as a supportive kind of thing rather than telling teachers what was expected of them in their classrooms. They felt that somebody cared about what they were doing, and what they were doing was important. But to also focus them on their particular curriculum that they were doing, to keep them on that focus and on the goals of the particular curriculum they were working with.
And is everybody going to have to do it, or is it just one or among other things that kids can do in that area?
One among other things for that day.
The fact that I had worked with children, I think, was an important factor, because the teachers knew that I had probably experienced it myself, so that I wasn't asking them to do something that may sound all right in theory, but isn't practical when you try to implement it.
In each program, 2 teachers and aides worked together in a team teaching situation. The teachers and aides shared responsibility in the classroom, planned, discussed the curriculum issues together, and they provided mutual support that's so essential to maintaining a high quality of classroom programming. The teachers were not only committed to the programs, they were committed to the children, and they expected them to do well. In all 3 programs, the teachers made demands on the children, and in responding to these demands, the children grew intellectually and emotionally. For example, the children were expected to talk with the teachers and the other kids. The children were also expected to reflect on what they were doing, to think before acting, to attend to the things they had selected to do, and they were encouraged to complete what they had begun. Because our research said that all the programs worked equally well on the majors we selected to test, we feel free to think about preschool education in terms of our values, our philosophy of education, if you will. We no longer feel compelled to look for the preschool curriculum, the one that will work best in all times and all places. And so we can now say to educators, you're free to choose your curriculum on the basis of what you value. If you value creativity, spontaneity, a permissive, warm atmosphere in the classroom where children are free to explore and discover on their own, then you can think in terms of the traditional approach, perhaps as exemplified by our unit-based program. In this approach, you would be concerned primarily with the social and emotional growth of the children. If you think, on the other hand, that children require a highly structured environment with an emphasis on acquiring language and academic skills, then you should think in terms of a language training program. One of the powers of this kind of structured programming is the tremendous insistence on the part of the teacher for performance from the child. This curriculum is strikingly different from the traditional preschool method, and yet I'd like to emphasize again that in our experience, the 2 have produced equal results. Unlike the language and the unit programs, the cognitive approach requires a commitment to a theoretical framework. The cognitive teacher looks at children and plans activities on the basis of a theory of intellectual development, while the children are encouraged to explore and make discoveries through their own actions. The general direction is provided by the teacher. She develops clearly defined goals for the children, yet she does not do it in such a way as to impose these goals on them. Rather, she works with each child at his level and structures his explorations into learning experiences based upon these conceptual goals. Now, this balance between the child's freedom to explore and to learn things for himself and the teacher's actions in stimulating and guiding him is what defines a cognitive teacher's role. In choosing the cognitive approach, then, you'd be choosing that role for the teacher. For if she can strike such a balance, then she will be providing the kind of atmosphere in the classroom that is most suitable for cognitive development. The major conclusion of this study is that while a well-conceived curriculum is of some importance, what is more important is the way staff members work together to provide quality teaching. This finding frees us to think about things we feel are philosophically important, and this freedom is something we have yet to fully understand and to fully exploit for the benefit of our children.
Give it to Laura. You want some now? Please? Okay. Be careful now. Take it with 2 hands.